Hey, welcome to Solutionary TV. I am your host, Dr. Tatiana, and I am thrilled to be able to bring an amazing guest on tonight that I had the serendipitous, if you believe in serendipity, opportunity of crossing paths with while at Rhythmia Life Advancement Center. I really believe that we are meant to have these symbiotic moments where we're brought together with the right people at a phase in our lives where new truth is looking to come forward. And I'm excited to introduce our guest tonight, which is Luke Sellars. Let me tell you a little bit about Luke. Luke is big into self-realization and life mastery, and his path has evolved through experiences as a professional hockey player and a dedicated practitioner of personal development practices of Eastern and Western traditions over the last 16 years. Luke has studied under the direct guidance of the great masters Daniel Mattel, Terry Bell, Drunvalo Melchizedek, and Hans Phillips in developing comprehensive and non-evasive techniques to evaluate the overall health, well-being, and performance in all areas of one's life. He works with his students and clients to assist in living life on purpose with passion and accessing infinite power. And I can tell you my first introduction to him over a meal outside of class time and sacred plant medicine was seeing him there with some ancient texts that had been channeled. And I went, you're a cool guy. I need to meet you. So help me welcome Luke Sellars. Luke, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Really an honor for me to be able to spend an hour with you and your beautiful community.
We really do have a beautiful community. They put up with a lot. Any of our regulars that come back to Solutionary TV have hit everything from what's going on with corporate to self-healing, to plant medicine, to UFOs, you name it, it's out there. And you fit in and marry beautifully with our crowd. I know we want to talk about the intelligence of the heart. We want to get around ancient literature, meeting modern day channeled understandings about creation and ascension and so much more. But let's just kind of circle back. Hockey player, and now, really kind of a mentor and spiritual guide in wellness and in following one's path. Luke, how did you come into all of this? You got to give us a starting point.
Sometimes I got to remind myself it's a reality and a life I'm living now that's one I could have only ever dreamed of. Growing up in Canada, hockey is religion here, and was good at it. So typically in life, when you're good at something, you stay entrenched in it. Turned pro, played in the NHL a little bit, American Hockey League, but developed some really, really difficult issues as a byproduct of concussions, anxiety, depression, ADHD, was self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, really heavy use of drugs and alcohol, which kind of led me down the path of getting into more holistic approaches to health. I was on so many medications for these different things that were going on, which at that time they were unaware that concussions could cause these issues. So I just thought that, I was broken. And I was a shell of a person. I couldn't feel emotion. I couldn't connect with people and really didn't want to live any longer. So I was looking to try to figure this out and got into nutrition and essentially meditation is where I really found that sense of peace and joy that was missing so much in my life and what I saw in the lives of the people around me that were trying to give me the assistance and guidance. And such a great blessing in acquiring really authentic, beautiful masters in Drunvalo Melchizedek and Daniel Mattel, specifically, who I work with directly one-on-one, and really introducing me to the possibility of living a life of joy and peace and moving away from competition, economic growth, and honoring my connection with Mother Earth and our universal Father, and really just starting to see myself in the eyes of all of humanity. So all of those experiences for me and all the difficulties and hardships over a 15-year period of time, really, and a continued one. I by no means have got it figured out, but it's all part of the process. And without that suffering, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I wouldn't have changed anything about it.
I hear that often, and I think that that's becoming a reoccurring theme, that the very challenges that are where the rubber meets the road in our lives is always an invitation for personal growth. And it's a profound path of personal growth that we look back and we're so grateful because it's the pits when it's happening. I mean, it could be a moment where you choose to take yourself out instead of moving forward, or to drown out, your conscious sense of purpose in your life by self-medication. It's so common. It's so easy to go there. and we have this defining moment. And you clearly had that defining moment that said, you know, I could keep going this way, or I could really reorient myself. And clearly it was meant to be a path that you were meant to introduce to others along the way and empower them. Let's talk a little bit about what led you to be building up your own clientele and doing some of the teaching that you are around these really pertinent topics.
Yeah, I started to see that because of my life experiences, and they were quite extreme ones, in the way I was living my life in a complete state of darkness. I found that people were starting to gravitate towards me, and ask kind of questions just based upon my own life's experiences. I was able to give a little bit of feedback, I think, that shed some light. More so, I just think I had a sense of compassion because I had suffered so intensely. I really didn't want to see if there's something that I could do to assist others in not suffering in that same way. Is what I was committed to, and went down a road and journeyed down with that, and developed a consulting business, working one on one with people, thinking, that I was here to now save the world, so to say,
Of
which I
course.
think anybody that gets involved in working with other people, in helping them to experience who they really are, they can get caught up in that. And I'm just fortunate I didn't go too deep down that rabbit hole, because in actuality, I really don't believe that we can help or hurt another human being. Their higher self is watching over them and guiding them through their life. That individual that, let's say, has cancer has that for a reason, because there's something for them to learn. So when I was able to figure that out, that it was more about just being in that space with people, and providing an opportunity and outlet for them to spend time with maybe somebody who didn't necessarily fit the mold of a really compassionate, loving person, and then just assisting and holding that space. And that's what kind of led me into getting more involved in the group work and meditations. I never set out on this path to try to be a teacher of any of this. I was just trying to live in peace in some way in my life. And then naturally, as I committed to the practice of that in my own daily life, then things started to open up in the physical reality, where people were coming in and looking to want to learn those same teachings. And it's really not teachings. It's just assisting people in remembering who they really are. All of this
Right.
information exists within us. It exists in this space within our heart. We call it the tiny space of the heart, because it was first referred to as that in the Upanishads, an ancient text out of India. And providing practical tools to people so that they can discover and empower that brilliance that exists within them, as opposed to trying to give them the answers, which robs them of the ability to then see that they have the access to this at all times.
Mm-hmm. You know, I appreciate that you are pointing out that for you, coming out of this massive realization and wanting to share that gift, yeah, there is almost a natural assertion. I need to go out, and now I need to give this gift to as many people as possible, and I can see how it saved me, therefore it can save another, and that's kind of a natural progression. But the beauty is that, just as much as we discussed off camera, cleaning up the way you view humanity, cleaning up the way you view that one sentience in the form of all of these fractalized iterations of that divinity, having their lessons, going through challenges as well, also needs to be respected. So in the respect of that, and let's talk a little bit about the whole dream time that is both our 3D waking reality and that dream time that we talked about off camera. In the lucidity of that, how do we clean up our perspectives, Luke?
Well, as so beautifully depicted by Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci, in the depiction of the Vitruvian Man, that image that we see so much of in different medical offices, and that we as the great masters teach us that all of life exists within this sphere, and it's true. Do I completely understand it on a cellular level? No, but consciously I'm aware of it, that it is that way. And all of our life's experiences happen within this sphere. From about 0 to 6 years of age, we're pure essence. As a child, we haven't developed an unconscious mind yet. And at some point there's something that takes place, some form of trauma, and then continuous traumas that start to lay the groundwork for a lot of the experiences that we're going to have in our life connected back to these traumas. We develop this identity to live in the world. We have a job, we're a husband, we're a brother, we're a friend, and we have all of these different hats that we wear, that are literally survival mechanisms attached to these traumas that have taken place. So our life's experiences that are difficult are actually a gift for us to understand the origin of where that comes from. And I believe in the ancient text, they refer to these somewhat stable equilibriums of energy within our sphere as samskaras.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially what happens is if we don't go in and clean our energy using some form of specific method, in the Western world, we're trying to fix the problems that we have created in the mind with the same way of thinking that created them through
Mm-hmm.
psychology, psychiatric work. Not that those don't have their place, they can be really powerful for people. But when we get into working with the energetic body and get into moving our spirit into the heart and then going in the heart, time is spherical and life is infinite. So we can recreate these traumas that have taken place in our life. And I use a specific Tibetan system from the system of heart imagery that was brought to the West by Daniel Mattel, in going in and actively cleaning these things on a regular basis. So what happens is we come onto the planet at about 100% pure energy. And by the time we're 30, 40, 50, we might be at 30% or so.
Mm-hmm.
Because the experiences we've had, we take on the energy of the experience and we give off some of ours.
Mm-hmm.
So as we go in and we clean these things, we actually take back our energy. And by taking back 3, 4, 5% has a drastic improvement in one's life from, healing physical issues, sleeping better, energy better. So all is an image, all is a dream in the way that the masters teach us. And this is a really difficult one for us to wrap our heads around. A beautiful story that was told to me by Daniel, the master I trained with, when he was working with Karma Dorji in Tibet. Daniel said to him, "What is this that you mean that all is a dream?" And he said, "Come here." And they lied down and went to sleep. These great masters can put you into that state immediately. And he came to him in the dream and put his hand on Daniel's leg and said, "Do you feel me touching you?" And then he woke him up and touched him again here in the physical realm. And he asked him, "What's the difference?"
Right.
And he didn't feel any difference. Mm-hmm. So in fact, all is dream time. When we're dreaming is no different than when we're awake now. But we need to actively go in and clean them. So when you have a dream, there's 2 different ways we can dream, where we're not actively involved in it. We're observing and don't have any control over it, or we get into our dreaming body, which is a byproduct of, I think, in my opinion, extensive vigilant practice of some form of well-being, meditation, nature, these types of things. So the images we see in dream time, we actually have to clean them. Mm-hmm. So when we come out of a dream or we wake up, it's good. All spiritual work should be done from the heart. Your spirit being in the heart. And we're going to do a nice, beautiful exercise to introduce you to that. So you actually go in and you reverse the dream. You sit there and you close your eyes and you see the images as if watching a movie on a like in a movie theater. Mm-hmm. You don't go into it and become emotionally attached to it. You just watch it. You observe it in reverse, which cleans the images. It allows them to dissipate. And it's actually a very powerful process for us to do this in our own daily life, reversing our day. So your day comes to an end and you close your eyes and you watch your entire day in reverse. Mm-hmm. You don't go into any of the experiences and you get back to the start. In the early stages, you may fall asleep doing this, but with practice, when we reverse our day, we allow the images in that to not accumulate within our sphere, so that we don't have more accumulated garbage that then is going to present itself clothed in our lives in different experiences that we will most likely perceive as being difficult. The interesting thing too is that happiness and suffering, or happiness and sadness, have the same value. So in fact, we also have to clean the beautiful experiences, which is a very
interesting. Well, let me pause you right there, Luke, because when you hear people talk about prophetic dreams, those that are watching for answers and imagery and intention setting before they go to sleep. We often talk about the fact that a lot of the dream time is the astral world where everything exists, right? Kind of like being in a meditation or being on sacred plant medicine in the right setting and intention. Everything exists in the astral world or in that 4th dimensional realm. And very often we take the pollution of our unfinished business and the chaos of our day that we didn't resolve into the dream that clouds being more lucid and more intuitive going into that dream state. So it makes sense to me that this would be a really important practice for those that are seeking a lot more symmetry in their sleep dream time, their reality dream time. That's really all the same thing, so that they're living more deliberately. They're actually cleansing the debris or the unfinished business, or the whole scheme. What does it look like? What does the imagery look like to reverse the day and move forward? Can you explain the mechanism a little bit better?
Well, you're essentially just doing that. It's you literally go into a meditative state, and you just watch your day in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
For some, it might be like they'll see the last segment they had and see it moving forward. For me now, with the practice and the more entrenched you become in these skills, because they are skills, which in the early stages when you practice these things can feel quite frustrating, because we have this relationship to things where we want to be good at things,
Mm-hmm.
where that's not really the point of it. But I actually see myself going backwards, talking backwards all the way back to the start of my. It's that simple. The simplicity of authentic practice is just that simple. We don't need to overcomplicate it. We have a tendency as human beings to not see value in things if it's not simple, or if it's not hard. Sorry, if it's not difficult.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's part of our education system, and it's also part of extricating us from a sense of inner knowing and internal intuitive wisdom, so that we can subjugate our sovereignty to an external authority. And you and I know that that's part of how we lose that 100%, right? You didn't say it directly, but I would assume that you would agree that part of what causes that diminishment of that 100% soul force and consciousness is a form of energy vampirism that we experience over time by being in these bodies and interacting with society and with family members and our education system. Would you agree that that's true?
Most definitely. The structure and paradigm in which we're existing in here on this planet couldn't be further from what we actually need as a humanity to thrive and live in a state of balance and joy. That being said, it's in divine order. It's part of the process. We're on our way home right now. The precession of the equinox, our planet is moving back towards the light, so to say. We fell from a very high level of consciousness about 250,000 years ago. And we're part of a project on a universal level known as the Luciferian project. This great angel that was almost at the level of God, who kind of disconnected and created this alternate reality. So we fell to this consciousness, and we're experiential beings. So we've come into the human form to know ourselves experientially, and we've kind of lost our way there because we're so fixated with the acquisition of money, and we're so overwhelmed with this thinking world of needing to be right and needing to be affirmed by our thoughts and our intellect, when in actuality the intelligence that exists within our heart, we actually have 40,000 what's called neurites in the heart. There's a brain there that functions at a much different frequency. So the construct of us on a social level within different industries, and that is developed in an ingenious way to develop obedient servants to the corporate structure. That being said, we still need to make a living and be able to support ourselves. So there's just as much light as there is darkness. It's just which you choose to shine the light on. So although things are a bit of a mess, I still see a lot of beauty in it, in the way that it's existing. But it's time for a change.
Well, thank you for giving such a beautifully well-rounded understanding, really wrapping your arms around, guys, this is what we're here experiencing. This is what we did consciously sign up for. We fell. No one forced us to fall. No one forces us to be in these bodies, living out these experiences. It is a voluntary system. There might be a little bit of confusion and manipulation in various aspects of that volunteering. And there certainly is a veil that makes things particularly challenging, and a lot of indoctrination that leans us towards, I guess I was born to be educated a certain way and to earn money until the day that I chase that headstone. But let's kind of circle back and empower our audience, because I know that you've studied a lot of esoteric philosophy and scriptures and understand some of the ancient philosophical truths. Let's just give them a snapshot of creation. We've already touched on the Luciferian principle, but bring it into a more well-rounded place. What are we looking at in terms of our human experience here and a snapshot of creation, so that we can get to the good news about coming through that great sidereal year and the timelines that we're on to be heading back into more illumination and light?
So creation, a really interesting topic. A lot of information out there on it. We're in our brains, so the majority of the population is creating in an unconscious way. You see the process of creation on a global level. Turn your news channel on, and all we see is fear and war and killings, and this is what we're feeding energy into, because we're all watching this confused in a state that we think we need to be informed on what's going on in the world. So we're feeding energy into this existence. It's a perfect example of of a collective consciousness of 7-8 billion people. And when we're all focusing on a reality, whether we understand it or not, that is fearful, then we create the state of that. If we look at the creation process, there's two ways to create. You can create from your brain, or you can create from your heart. Creation from the brain, you will always also create the complementary opposite of that which you are focusing on to create, because the mind functions in polarity: hate, love, happiness, sadness. If you don't know one, you don't know what the other one is. We need a point of contrast. Just like Source, before there was any of this, created itself as that which it was not, so it could understand itself as that which it is. Just like us here in this third dimensional or third density, and we need to go through our garbage to understand the light. So in the brain, that which you focus on, I'll give you a really good example. Drumbelow presented this to us. So let's say you want to create rain. So you have to incorporate all energetic bodies: the emotional body, mental body, and physical body. So you have to be able to see the clouds coming in off the horizon. And this is on a beautiful sunny day. So in the mind's eye, you have to actually be able to see the clouds coming in, because it's not going to rain out of a crystal clear blue sky. Things happen in a logical way, in the way that they unfold, even though it might be illogical in how that whole thing came into your life. So you have to be able to see the clouds. You also have to be able to feel the elation. So I mean, literally, let's say it didn't rain for 20 years. You're crying. You're so happy that it's raining. And the third step, physically, maybe the most difficult, you have to be able to smell the ozone, feel the raindrops on your skin. You have to do all of these things simultaneously at once for who knows how long, without focusing on anything else. And we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. 95% or more were the same as yesterday. Mm-hmm. That's the unconscious loop that's running. So best of luck trying to focus on those three things for even a minute without another thought coming in. So the conscious creation of the mind that's been so spoken about, The Secret spoke to this quite in depth. I really don't believe that your average human being has an ability to be able to create in this way, in a conscious way. Now that unconscious loop that's going on, that's connected to fear, we see what that's creating. Now, creation from the heart, the only way that we want to create, we move our spirit from the brain into the heart, tiny space of the heart, which is the center of all of creation. Every living energy has a tiny space, this point where the toroidal field meets in the heart. And in that place, polarity is void now. You're now in a singularity. In that state, there's some certain things that need to be connected, and opening the third eye, creating alpha waves in the brain, to be able to then start receiving the images that come to you in the heart. And in the heart, you can't sit there and write down, I want to create Brad Pitt as my husband, or I don't, whoever the heartthrob is these days. In my age, he was always the big guy that everybody wanted to be like. So, and then go into the heart and create it, because the heart, when you're in the tiny space of the heart, you're connected to the higher self and directly to God, essentially. And the heart doesn't have desire, right? Because the desire something is the fear not having it. So when you go into the heart, you start receiving these images. And then you set your intention and attention, if the image feels good, and push it out into the Leonardo sphere. And if it's meant to come into creation, it will. We need to know how to create. We can't just like the idea of it. It's like to know yourself as a loving person, you have to commit to a loving act. You can't just think about being loving. You have to give food to the homeless person, open the door, call your mother on a day and say hello and I love you, and that type of thing. So we need to know ourselves as these creative beings, but we first need to decipher through a lot of the information that's out there, that I really believe these people are doing the best they can and trying to assist humanity. But there is a lot of inaccurate information when it comes down to how you actually create in a conscious way.
Right. I wholeheartedly agree. And it is actually something that I need to revisit regularly in a book that I wrote going on about 3 years ago, and it took some time on the #1 bestseller on Amazon, but it was Prosperity Through the Development of Emotional Intuition. And yes, I agree with you, my friend. What you think and what you feel is a field, and it expands around that heart field and that larger toroidal field that then attracts. The universe starts in quantum waves returning it to us. And what I've come to find is that the emotional impact, because we can't guard all of our thoughts, we are in a mind soup that we're sharing, right, with the rest of humanity and the rest of sentient life. But we do have to be aware of our habituated states of thinking. So let's talk a little bit about that. And I don't mind if you go into a Luciferian agenda. We have a lot that is projected on society to keep us locked in fear boxes. Can we touch on how our beautiful divinity-oriented co-creative field has kind of been hijacked by the news and by fear porn and all of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I spend quite a lot of time contemplating this in a positive way, because again, if we become too fixated and consumed with these conspiracy things, so we need to be aware of what's going on the planet. And that's why meditative process is so important in one's life, because you read something or you see something, then go into your practice or whatever that looks like for you to then see if that actually aligns. Is that a truth that you want to take on and put energy into? So practical application of how we step outside of these things is really where I work. I mean, the theory of things is beautiful, but how do you actually overcome these things? And I mean, one of the best ways, disconnect your cable, turn the TV off, and spend more time in silence.
Yes.
Because essentially, by being the example, actually, let me say it like this. We can go out and fight for peace as much as we want and have it. And I know that I get a lot of slack with some people when I say these things, but I feel so passionate about it and feel so centered with it. We go out and fight for peace. We march against things. It's like Mother Teresa said back in the day. They asked her to march against the Vietnamese War, and she said, "I'll never march against anything. When you have a pro-love rally, I'll be there." And I think that we're caught up as a population right now trying to fight against things, when in actuality, if you become the example of that which you see, of that which you wish to see in the world, that's how we shift this planet. So in fact, sitting in nature in silence, you have much more of a profound effect on the ongoings on this planet, and assisting the little boy in Africa that doesn't have food, or these types of people, by being that vibration, as opposed to trying to shove it down everybody's throat in the perspectives of views and how we think things need to change. Now, that doesn't mean we don't take action. We do need to take action. But I think we've lost our way in the sense of how we actually overcome a lot of these huge issues for the majority of us. You have these thought leaders that are involved in, scientists and how to overcome, global warming or all these different things. But for most of us, I think we need to stop worrying so much about what we need to do and start getting into the essence of who we are. And that's the only way I think that will change. It's the only way we come together.
It is an education, though, Luke, isn't it? I mean, if we don't understand the fundamentals about being co-creative beings, so much of what we're oriented towards is that we have fallen victim to a system, fallen victim to a predator, fallen victim to a disease in our bodies. And so I'm with you. Don't linger too long on the bad news when you understand how you've been manipulated or how your co-creative force has been hijacked, because you don't want to stay in righteous indignation for too long, and you don't want to be paranoid. It's really important to come back to your power, but that there does need to be an understanding about our co-creative power enough that we can then say, I'm not going to let it be hijacked. I'm not going to work a job that I hate. I'm not going to refuse to get outside on a beautiful day because I have a presentation. I'm going to go and create the time to be rather than be actively doing. Wouldn't you agree?
Really, really well said. I completely agree. There's definitely an incubation period in the shift in one's life, which is a continuous ongoing process. I mean, we have these aha moments, but it's an ongoing journey, our self-realization and transformation. So we need to become aware. And I think in that period of time, the accumulation of information through authentic writings and teachings and books and that, and then we get to the point where we need to stop that and listen to the word of God, so to say, and what that looks like. And whoever that God is to you is completely perfect and beautiful, but start listening to that inner vibration and start following our path of heart-guided intuition and the intelligence of the heart. But I definitely agree with you there that we need to become aware of it. The victimization component of things it's an interesting thing because we did choose this life. We chose this body. We chose our family. And every lifetime that we've had, we just don't remember choosing when we came in here. So the victimization we actually chose, and to be empowered, one needs to be victimized. So in fact, the victimization, hijacking of the things that are going on is a beautiful gift, which if one embodies it and takes it on in that way, they begin the process of coming to see things in a different way.
Yeah, I agree with you in that. And I know that using the words beautiful and gift along with some of the most heinous crimes that many of us would consider to be victimization, is it grates against that sense of where is the fairness and where is the kindness and where is the love. And I know, as a regular meditator and one that has really experienced an amazingly transcendent time at Rhythmia, meeting you and meeting with the founders, Gerald Powell and Dr. Jeff McNary, and all the amazing souls that were there at the time. Part of what Aya shows us, and the meditations and the transformational breath, is that the very most depraved and challenging and abysmal experiences that we've had brought us to exactly where we are in compassion and inquiry right now, to reclaim all the parts of ourselves and to heal the aspects of ourselves that have been wounded along the way. And there's no way to understand the great balance in the universe between the light and the darkness, and why they're both relevant and why they both have value, if you haven't really truly tasted them in some deep and painful extremes. And I think that might even bring us to where we were looking to discuss with those that are joining with us today. We were going to talk about the Earth's place in the cosmos. And I don't want to push you too quickly off of where you've been, but I think that we need to recognize we're not alone in this. Yes, we chose our soul incarnations, and we've chosen many of them. And there is a grander purpose to all things. Can we talk a little bit about your understanding and your study about how we play a role in the larger understanding of the universe?
Yeah, most definitely. It's we're definitely not alone, which obviously is up for argument's sake, depending on what circles you're discussing. And my understanding of this, just to clarify, is like not smaller than that. I think that we from a lower level dimension, density, however you like to refer to it as, and we don't need to make these things exotic and overemphasize them. It's essentially like you're in the third grade in school. Now, we can only know so much about the higher levels. Ken Wilber, this beautiful author and man that was a devotee to this path of awakening, wrote so beautifully that it's impossible for us to completely know the higher from the lower. So we hypothesize and put all these different methods and ways of explaining things together. But essentially, if you're in the third grade, you can't know the inner workings of the fourth grade completely. You can just have a bit of an idea about it. So when we look at our place in the cosmos, a really, really good book that I read consistently and is suggested by a lot of the masters, Urantia, which is actually the name of our planet on a cosmic level. And this is essentially the authentic teachings. Again, my perspective. So I see the truth of life as I see it, not as truth, because if I did, I'd be like these beautiful masters like Yogananda and all that kind of stuff. We can strive towards it. So we see things as our truth. But there are multitude, billions of spheres with intelligent life on them, in different constellations, galaxies. In the teachings of this beautiful book, which, as I said, anything you read, spend time in contemplation and meditation and see if it really aligns with you. Don't just blindly take information and then embody it as a truth in your life without really, just sitting and feeling into it. But in the context of the way that this is delivered, there's actually 7 super universes. And at the center of everything is the Isle of Paradise, which is where God exists. And these super universes have creator sons. The one of ours happens to be Jesus, known as Christ Michael, actually. So, and our sphere here exists in a certain part of a local universe that's connected into that, and then we get into the galaxies, the constellations, and just in our close neighbors here, there's so many other beings. But the interesting thing about this whole thing and what these beautiful guides and masters teach us is, don't get lost up in the clouds. Don't get lost. Don't be thinking about being on another planet. Be here. Be the best human that you can be. You chose to come into this life. We have really, really it's difficult to not get caught up in, especially if you're an avid meditator, because you start having these beautiful experiences and they can take you away. You get lost in them. We have to keep coming back in and coming back in. And just, in the Eastern teachings of the Indian masters, to just be in the awareness, be in the seat of your consciousness. And eventually you start to expand and you become the awareness, you become the spaciousness. You exist in this expansive space that really anything in life is possible. So with speaking about our place in the universe and cosmos, there are loving celestial beings that are with us now in your space there, where you're doing the talk here with me, in and around the sphere that we call Earth, that are supporting us, but only we can do it. There's not going to be some spaceship that comes down out of the sky and rescues everybody and all that. We as a humanity have to lean on one another and raise the vibration here by being the example. And when we reach a tipping point where we have more people on this planet that are living genuinely, authentically from their heart, and not from their brains, that's when the technologies will start to. The technologies are there to clean water, to create food out of nothing, but we need to rise to that level before they start being delivered to us. We were very close in the late 1800s when Nikola Tesla came on the scene with self-sustainable energy and all these beautiful things, which was, we know the story of these masters that understood the way that these things function, and what happened for the last 100 years. But again, all in divine order. So focus on being here, but expand in the teachings and readings and that you feel called to open up your awareness so that you can really start to embody the belief and understanding, because beliefs are all or nothing. Like Jesus walking on water. Peter gets out of the boat, takes 2 steps, and one cell in his being looked up at him laughing like, you can't do this, and he sunk into the water. Beliefs are all or nothing. So the more and more that we gather information and we sit with that information, we start to shift our beliefs. We start to shift the energy in our mental and emotional bodies, and we start to understand that we aren't alone. And then that brings us back into our center and being the most purposeful human that we can be, and having an effect and living our most purposeful lives.
Yeah. I think that the way that you brought that back around, to keep remembering the purpose, not to escape our vehicles, not to escape the lives that we are living in, because so many right now are very caught up in the signs of the times. I'm very involved in what's going on with the signs of the times. I don't think I'm ever 100% in 3D anymore. I feel like I am gliding in and out of various multiverses that I exist in, and iterations that made different choices. I get to sample those lives, feel into those in my meditations and my very lucid states, as well as feeling very much in other realms that are part of what is coming next, that many are referring to as the second coming or the shift or the event or the ascension. And I do want to talk to the ascension, but what I'm hearing you say as your best advice to those that are listening and watching now is, fall in love with who you are, be fully present and embodied in who you are, recognize you chose to be you. And in so doing, it almost effortlessly brings up that vibrational field for yourself.
Most definitely. We need to completely fall in love with ourselves. And that's that whole cleaning process. I think we sensationalize that process by this whole healing thing. From the way I look at it, we just need to clean so that we can be centered and we can really live our most purposeful life. And we come to see and realize that there's actually nothing to do. It's like this great master Gurdjieff, the Sufi master, speaks to it, that you come to see that there's nowhere to go, nothing to do. We just need to be. Now, to arrive at that realization and that expression of life takes a lot of time, because it's a really difficult one to embody in the way that we're living in this part of the world, or globally on the planet.
Right. Well, so as we're looking at where Earth has a place in the cosmos, that we're part of really an enormous divine order of sentient life that is going through its own timelines for evolution and self-awareness and a sense of continuity amongst all sentient life out there. Let's talk about where we are with this planet, because like you said, about 100 years ago when Nikola Tesla came through with some of these free energy devices, and there was certainly a tremendous amount of consciousness around our divinity as co-creators back then. Things have been hijacked a few times. If you go back and you look at Earth history, you're going to see that there's been the rise and fall of various civilizations. And we know now that, we're not really an 8,000-year-old planet in terms of, progressive humanity and society and technology, that we have had technology that is beyond what we even are capable of now in previous civilizations, from, the architecture around Egyptian pyramids or Machu Picchu and the Mayans and the Incans. So let's kind of talk about where we're going with this ascension. Obviously, there's been a lot of intervention from either inner Earth species or extraterrestrial space brothers that are part of our heritage, our lineage. Where do you see, given all that you studied and the Urantia book, that the Ascension is moving into?
Well, Ascension broke down very simply is essentially moving your spirit from your brain into your heart.
Okay.
We are confusing Ascension with thinking that there's somewhere to go out there. There's nowhere to go out there. It's all within us. So in fact, when we move, our spirit descended down upon this mind in this body. It's not us. It's just a vehicle. It's a vessel, and it's been housed in the pineal chakra for the last couple thousand years because we see life as infinite and time as linear, and time as actually being a reality when in actuality it isn't. So when we move our spirit from here inside of our body, it's like Hermes said, as above, so below, as within, so without. And what he meant by that is what's up there is actually in you. Mm-hmm. So when we move our spirit from here down into the heart, you just descended. Now, obviously in the evolutionary path of moving into the expression of life in the different densities, is an interesting one. And I think that we really know very little about it. But it's coming, whether we like it or not. And Mother Earth is the one that decides when we ascend. It's like the great master Paramahansa Yogananda, for 10 years he was asking to leave this planet until she gave him permission. So this whole ascension process is not one that we need to overcomplicate, and it's a really exotic topic that enchants people right now. I think we need to break it down and simplify it. And the way in which we achieve that state of consciousness is to entrench yourself in your own well-being practice. Now, when we look at the human light body and how we actually leave this body and go through that ascension process, living here on Mother Earth has a geographical electromagnetic field based on sacred geometry. It's a star tetrahedron, the same biological electromagnetic field that we have around us. It's what allows us to sustain life here on Mother Earth. And this field helps along with cholesterol and different things in our physiology to hold memory. When we leave the physical body, if we do not have our Merkaba, human light body, activated, we cannot die in a conscious way and take all of our memories of this life moving forward. So it's a necessary part of ascension is activation of this human light body, which the life's work in Drumvalo Melchizedek coming back to this planet. In Awakening Illuminated Heart workshop that we teach you how to activate that. So the nuts and bolts of how you actually die consciously and move forward, remembering everything moving forward, is having that activated. But by just moving spirit from the brain into the heart is essentially a part of the ascension process.
So let's talk about the mechanism of that. I've got 2 minutes before you've got a really amazing exercise. I know that you're going to walk us through here live and to the betterment of our viewers, listeners. But let's just talk about the most simplest tool that they can immediately perceive and start to embody about activating that internal Merkaba. You talked about getting into the heart. Can you give us another piece to it, Luke?
Yeah, it's a bit of a process. The best way is to seek out, go to the schoolofremembering.com and seek out a workshop that's in your area, or go to one. Because first we need to move our spirit into our heart, and then there's a process of activation of certain systems. At 512 cells in the womb, we are a human heart. It's the first thing to form. The second thing is the tongue. So there's a process when we're in there in using the tongue to stimulate alpha waves in the brain, opening of the third eye, and then doing a specific breathing process to bring energy into the Leonardo sphere. And the Merkaba activates on its own. Back before about 2010, 2011, and the way it was being taught in the male energies, it was done with a 17 breath mudra. Now being done from the heart is a very simple process, but for somebody to really go into that, the best solution is to do that workshop. This human light body will activate in a natural way, in the way of the great masters that would be committed to 8-10 hours of work spiritually and meditative process for 20, 30, 40 years, and then it activates naturally on its own. Us in the Western world, that's not really in the cards for most of us. And that's why these masters have delivered this workshop to us, so that we can activate it, because the Western world needs to wake up. Our corporations need to wake up for anything to really change here on the planet. And this is a really beautiful way in 4 days to be able to activate those systems.
Wonderful. At the end, at the close of the show, I'm going to have you remind everybody about the website. But I'm excited that you have this exercise, kind of this meditation that you are going to gently direct us through. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and then set the tone, set the mood, and we will go right into that exercise with you, Luke.
Perfect. So as I touched on there, our spirit descended down upon our mind, our brain, and it's been there for the last couple thousand years. So for us to evolve spiritually or evolve as human beings, to become our most authentic selves, essentially it's remembering who we really are. And all this intelligence and information exists in the space of the heart. Our soul holds the information of all of our lifetimes and all the onworkings. Our spirit and its location dictates the way in which we see. When it's housed in the brain, we see through polarity. When it's in the heart, we see in oneness. And then we have our higher self, which is our direct line connection to the higher levels. So I'm going to guide you gently, your spirit, using this beautiful Tibetan method, from the brain down into the heart. Essentially, we are moving inside of the body, no different than moving out there. So when you're moving inside of the body, you're very tiny, this little flicker of light. And the room you're sitting in right now, if we use that as an example of the mind or the brain, you're right there in the middle, in the crosshairs of the brain where the pineal chakra is. Now, the expansiveness of the brain is much greater. It'd be billions of light years, because essentially the entire universe exists within you. So we're just going to breathe gently, and I'm going to guide you from your brain down into your heart. It's really good that I'll suggest that you see your body as this big, beautiful house, and your spirit's been up there in the room of the brain for the last couple thousand years. It can help for you if you turn the lights off or put something over your eyes, like a mask or something, because it's much easier for us to move inside of the body when we have something on our eyes, so that we're not trying to look out this way, right? Even with the eyes closed, we have a tendency to still be projecting out that way.
And Luke, what about uncrossing the legs, uncrossing the body, being in a more receptive state? Do you recommend that as well?
If you have not done much meditation and your body tends to be twitchy and that, then it's good to not have your legs crossed and all that. But I mean, you know yourself better than anybody. For those that are avid meditators, we know that you can be hanging upside down if you'd like to.
True enough.
Whatever works for you. We use, in heart imagery, we use what's called the Pharaoh's posture, the way that the great masters back in Egypt, we used to do imagery. So you'd sit with your feet on the ground, both hands, palms down on your knees in a chair. They actually had these big, beautiful chairs where it'd almost be like they're suspended, like those infinity chairs. So keep your hands on your lap there, on your knees facing down, so your palm chakras, which can become very sensitive when we meditate, don't bring us out of that. And we'll just do a short exercise, 5 minutes or less here. With heart imagery, less is more. It's a very powerful system, even written in the Sumerian tablets. The Adamic race, it's written that said their god Enlil would ask them to close their eyes, he would feed them an image, and all of life would change. So we'll move into the heart and just spend a minute or so there. So you'll feel the difference of being in the heart, of being in the brain. When you meditate on your own, the amount of time that it takes for you to kind of quiet the mind a little bit before you can leave it, I mean, obviously is different from person to person. So hopefully you get a lot out of this, and maybe something that you'd like to integrate into your own practice if it aligns with you. But always remember that you know yourself better than anybody.
All right. Perfect.
Great. So
ready for you to lead us, Luke. Thank you.
I do the meditation with you. So just gently close your eyes and breathe in a natural way. Your inhalation through your nose and your exhalation leaving your mouth. Let your hips, shoulders, and eyebrows completely relax. Completely relax, the 3 points in which we hold all of our emotional stress. And as you inhale, see, sense, feel, and know a vibrant white light is flowing into you, cleaning of all unwanted energies. And as you exhale, a white mist leaving your mouth, it helps to say with your inner voice, all of my problems, worries, and fears are leaving me now. Do this 3 times. I kindly ask you to begin to breathe rhythmically. Inhalation and exhalation through your nose, similar in length, and it helps to place your tongue to the roof of your mouth at any location. As you inhale, feel your diaphragm expand and contract and bring life force energy, prana, from above and below into the center of your beautiful heart. And as you exhale, fill your heart sphere with this beautiful life force energy. Your heart sphere holds an abundance of this energy. As you inhale, rain prana from above and below into the center of your heart. As you exhale, fill your heart sphere with more prana. And continue to breathe in this way. See your body there is represented as a big, beautiful house. And your spirit, you, has been housed there in the room of the brain there on the top floor for the last couple thousand years. You know this environment well. It's like being in a cave, dark, cold, damp, lonely, disconnected, lacking direction. Although the environment feels safe, it's what you know. Feel the room of the brain. There's different rooms. There's the room of the liver, the pancreas, the heart. As above, so below, as Hermes so beautifully tells us. Feel the room of the brain. Now let's leave this place. There at your feet is a golden spiral staircase moving down through the center of your being. Leave the brain now. Let's go home together. Be again a child. Step by step, descend down, moving down through the throat chakra, feeling things become a little less dense, down further through the upper chest, down to the middle of the chest, step out to the left onto a platform. And there before you, your beautiful, magnificent heart, the answer to all of your questions. There's a door there, an entry point. Open and enter. Don't think. Go. Close the door behind you and lock it. Spirit has a tendency to move back to the brain as it has been its home for the last couple thousand years. And exhale one long breath. Feel the difference, how the heart feels in comparison to the brain. It has a sweetness to it, a softness. Feel the energy of the heart, the 7 energies of the heart: love, truth, beauty, trust, harmony, peace, and reverence for God, reverence for spirit. Feel the embrace of these beautiful energies. With your inner voice, invoke your higher self. Literally say with your inner voice, higher self, please come before me now. And he, she, or they will come instantly. They may appear in the form of a human, an animal. It could be a sound, a feeling, a knowing, a writing on the wall, anything. Don't be attached to the process. Just experience it. Be with it. Experience this part of you. This is you in the higher levels. You can access guidance and information from the space of the heart connected with your higher self. Gently invoke yourself there. Say your name, please come before me now. And there you appear in any form. Look into your eyes. Look beyond your ego. Connect to that part within you, your essence, your inner child, who you really are. Look at how beautiful you are. The miracle that is you. Spend time looking in the mirror every day. Speak to yourself. Say your name. I love you. I'm grateful for you. I forgive you. I will show up for you. Look at how beautiful you are. Embrace yourself. Allow yourself to go on your way. Commit your life to living from that place. See yourself in the eyes of all of humanity, and together we change the world. Gently exhale one long breath. Open your eyes.
That was velvety, buttery yumminess, Luke. That was some good stuff.
You have such a beautiful community there. I can feel their hearts and their vibration, and such a beautiful necklace too. You have Metatron's cube there.
I do.
Lord Metatron.
It is the omega and the beautiful marriage and melding of all that sacred geometry. Doesn't it just hold that awakening vibe, Luke?
It's so beautiful, and you're doing such beautiful work in your life, Tatiana. It's such a blessing to know you, and so beautiful to share this space with you. And we'll continue to connect in our hearts.
Well, I know that that is true, and I don't want anyone to miss the opportunity to learn more through the masters that you studied, that you would direct them to, and any of the events that you have coming up or any speaking. Let's talk about getting them back to your websites and knowing about what's coming up in your world, Luke.
Yeah, we can. So my website, lucesellars.com. There's information there. The School of the Heart, which is the primary school that I work with, that was created, our chief there, Daniel Mattel. One of the books of this time right now that's really good for you to read, Journeys into the Heart, written by Daniel and Drumlow Melchizedek. Heart Imagery, A Path to Enlightenment, another really good book. This Now is Eternity, The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, book 1 and 2. Really, really good books to assist you in understanding the intelligence of the heart, also living in the heart. We have The Language of the Heart. Interesting story, actually. At Rhythmia, when I'm down there, that's what the workshop's called.
Yes, tell everyone when you're going to be there, that we may just get some guests to show up just to see you.
I'm there in April. Unbeknownst to myself, I named the workshop there the same name of the workshop that Daniel and Claudette Melchizedek are teaching through the School of the Heart in Sedona.
Oh, that is perfect synchronicity, though. You know it is. That's good stuff.
April 2nd to 6th, but I have to touch on it that workshop in Sedona is coming up with these great masters teaching it, Agati, Daniel Mittel, and Claudette. So that's something that might interest you. We always have workshops going on up here in Toronto through the School of the Heart and through the School of Remembering. I'll be at Rhythmia in April for a week there. If you go to rhythmia.com, this beautiful center that Jerry Powell has created on his suffering and struggles. That, I mean, our experiences are quite similar. I tell him, except minus the couple 100 million that he's made in his life. So,
you didn't want that burden, Luke. Apparently that wasn't your exit.
I'll be back at Rhythmia in May, also doing another workshop. We're in the process of developing a center here, a meditation center about an hour outside of Toronto in Coburg, which we'll have up and running, looks like in September, with workshops and meditations taking place there. So lots of beautiful stuff. But my website's the best way to contact me or through the School of the Heart. I'm always available for questions and things like that. And that's about it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That was very concise, and you generously directed everyone towards your masters and your peers and your colleagues. I think you have a tremendous amount to offer with a tremendous amount of humility, Luke. And I want to thank you for so generously being on the show. I knew we were meant to connect. I trust that these synchronicities, these kind of divine moments where we're led to catch just enough of someone, what they're sharing or what they have on their bodies, like you noticing the necklace. I noticed you with the Urantia book. It was like, yep, I'm listening to that. I want to welcome and remind our wonderful listeners, our viewers, this is not a lonely, arduous path uphill. This journey can be spectacular. It can be splendid. It can be a wild and exciting ride. We're not just tolerating our human existence into what we consider to be the next iteration, which is death. There are so many paths to higher aspects of experiential divinity right here, right now, in the 3D / slipping back and forth between 2 and 4 and 5. It's all available. And I think that Luke has done a really spectacular and a beautiful job of allowing us to feel that in this presentation. So again, thank you, Luke. And take a look at Solutionary TV. Take a look at Solutionary TV on Facebook. You'll see more about Luke and our former guests. And consider being a sponsor and a patron, because through your generosity, we are able to continue to deliver this amazing content. We're so honored. And remember, together, we are the solution.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.